Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. CNN. All right, guys. Every video I've done for the past 2 days, I've played it, and then like 3, 4, 5 seconds in, it pauses and doesn't unpause, and then I have to reload. Hopefully that won't happen. Hear what Canada's Prime Minister said about Trump's latest tariff escalation. I really don't know anything about the new Prime Minister. I knew of Trudeau well. Let's go.
This is very modest.
Trump has just announced a sweeping new tariff on cars.
This is very modest. And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. Business is coming back to the United States so that they don't have to pay tariffs.
President. Guys, something I've learned about car manufacturing, though, you know, like Ford, GMC are American car companies, and like Honda, for instance. But a car isn't just made from scratch in a country, right? And so some companies like Honda, I believe, have more of the parts made for their car in U.S. factories, right? And so you might think like, oh, buy American, but you might buy a GMC or a Ford and not realize that Ford and GMC might actually be having a lot of their parts made, which make up a car, in other countries. And so ironically, that, like, I'm using Honda, for example, because I think they create quite a bit in the USA, is like, oh, I'm not buying Honda, I'm buying this. But, well, if you want to help American car manufacturers, and then why would you tariff something like a Honda? I don't think they are doing that for Japan, but it's not as clean as to like where the company is based in. It's about how they make their car and where the materials and parts of a car are made elsewhere, right? So is it really an American-made car if 60% of its parts are made abroad? And is it really like a foreign-made car company if like 60% are made in the USA? I've learned that. So it's like
Trump announced 25%
Mark
tariffs against our auto industry. And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack on the very workers that I stood in front of, uniform workers I stood in front of this morning at the Ambassador Bridge. A bridge that is a symbol and a reality up until now of the tight ties between our two countries, ties of kinship, ties of commerce, ties that are in the process of being broken. We will defend our workers. We will defend our companies. We will defend.
Yeah, I would. You know, the best way to gain a better relationship with our closest trading partner and our closest friend in Canada, hear me out, to increase relations, let's tariff them after creating a trade agreement you did in your last term. Let's tariff them, and let's threaten to invade them and call them our state. I'm a genius. That's perfect for good international partner relations. That's genius. That is genius. God, he's good.
Our country, and we'll defend it together. You know, this will hurt us, but through this period, by being together, we will emerge stronger. I think what's happened, and this was part of our discussion, over the course of the last several months, Canadian workers, Canadians as a whole across this country, have gotten over the shock of the betrayal and are learning lessons. We have to look out for ourselves, and we have to look out for each other. It would be appropriate that the President and I speak, given the action that he's taken. I'm sure that will happen soon. I'm not going to give you a precise timing on that. In terms of options, which was the second part of Ms. Martin's question, even during a caretaker period of government. We have anticipated this possibility. We have put in place the mechanisms so that if it is appropriate for retaliatory tariffs, and there's many considerations to be taken in those regards, and I want to have the meeting of our cabinet, Canada-U.S. cabinet, other considerations. We need to see the details of the executive order.
Buyer beware, your next car could cost more money.
This is very modest. And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. Business is coming back to the United States so that they don't have to pay tariffs.
A very modest 25% tariff, the president says. My political sources are here, Paul Begala and Scott Jennings, along with my deeply sourced White House insiders, Zolan Cano-Youngs from the New York Times and Isaac Arnsdorf from the Washington Post. And Isaac, this was something the White House announced later this afternoon. They said the president's going to be making an announcement on auto tariffs. This is a 25% tariff on all imports coming into the U.S. And he said it starts April 2nd. Obviously, he was arguing that that will be, in the end, better for the American consumer. But what have you heard from sources about how this all came about today?
Well, obviously, Trump was elected to lower prices, not raise them. And
it'll be better for American car employees, I'm sure. But the American consumer is now going to have to pay, like, what, 25% more if they do a 20? I don't know. I'm not great with economics, but yeah, for car manufacturers and car manufacturer employees in America, I'm sure it's great for them. But the consumer is going to have to pay a lot more.
He is betting that the long run, that Americans are going to stick with him in the long run but factories aren't built overnight. And he's acknowledged that there's going to be pain in the meantime. And I've been assured by the White House that we're not going to see a repeat on April 2nd of what happened a month ago, where the markets panicked, the other countries scrambled.
Sorry, guys.
Assured by the White House that we're not going to see a repeat on April 2nd of what happened a month ago, where the markets panicked, the other countries scrambled, and they agreed, well, we have some concessions, let's work it out, let's pause it, let's delay it a month. You know, is this going to be happening every month? Are we going to have that whiplash scare every month that then gets dialed back? I've been assured this time April 2nd is real.
Well, what happens if April 2nd is real? Because I think that's what all of these, the car makers, the automakers, everyone else who's going to be affected by these tariffs has been looking at, saying, do we need to actually prep for this, or is it going to be an exception, a pullback, whatever we've seen before previously?
Which we've seen in the past, right? Particularly when it came to tariffs on Mexico as well, and when it came to Canada. I remember that, and when he threatened tariffs initially on Mexico, I traveled there, talked to officials who were asking those same questions. Is this for real? Which is often the question that comes up. Is this just politically advantageous to issue the rhetorical threat of this economic penalty, or to actually go through with it? You mentioned that he acknowledged also the pain that consumers might feel. I think it's more than just he's betting that Americans will be patient here with any sort of economic frustration. That acknowledgement is also part of a resetting of expectations in a way. We have to remember that during the transition, that the pain that consumers might feel. I think it's more than just he's betting that Americans will be patient here with any sort of economic frustration. That acknowledgement is also part of a resetting of expectations in a way. We have to remember that during the transition, Trump said he would bring down consumer prices immediately and address inflation immediately. Here you start to see just in recent weeks the president and other officials saying, hey, look, now that we're in office, these tariffs, it may come with some economic pain, particularly if they do go through with it on April 2nd.
Scott, how does the president balance that in terms of you can only, if you're negotiating and using it as a tactic, you can't really back away from it that often, or people will just always think maybe it's not actually going to happen. But how do you balance that with what consumers might feel as a result of this?
Well, you balance it by making your argument that I'm trying to transform the American economy, and while we may have some short-term pain for consumers, we're going to have long-term gain for workers. And if you look on your social media tonight, the United Auto Workers, the UAW, has put out a strong statement in support of what Trump did today.
Well, of course, the American auto workers are going to be happy for these.
And one of the reasons that Trump said he was doing the tariff is because of declining domestic production. And so in the eyes of Trump, in the eyes of the UAW, the people who represent the people who work in these factories, this is a win for them. So the balance here is short-term pain for consumers, maybe long-term gain for workers. And by the way, if everybody wants to make their stuff here, nobody's going to feel any pain at all. For workers. And by the way, if everybody wants to make their stuff here, nobody's going to feel any pain at all.
Well, you're going to have to pay more.
This is going to go down in history. Like, you know how like Reagan had Morning in America and FDR had the New Deal and LBJ, the Great Society? This presidency will be known as the Great Betrayal. He was elected by the American middle class. He won the votes of voters who make less than 50 grand a year. Just as Isaac said, they voted for him for one reason: cut my cost of living. Since he's taken office, he took office, eggs were $4.14 a carton. They're $5.89 today. Gas was $2.95 a gallon. They're $3.11 today. This is all from the Federal Reserve.
I think you're off on the eggs.
It's 100% from the Federal Reserve.
I think you're off on the eggs.
I'm just telling you what the Fed says. Rent has gone up $1 a day every day since he was sworn in. If he's not cutting the price of groceries, gas, and rent, he is failing the people who put him in office. He's stabbing them in the back. These are good people. I hate when my side attacks Trump voters.
I can't speak for everyone, and it's going to be different, but my gas prices have been pretty low recently, but I live in a place that might not have that. And I want to say another thing about CNN. I'm not a giant fan of CNN or most American media, but I see CNN, I see Fox News, and I see MSNBC. I think Fox News and MSNBC are trash, okay? Fox News I see as just, they are spokespeople for Republicans. MSNBC, same thing. I see them as spokespeople, campaign workers for the Democrats. CNN doesn't have, isn't free of problems, but I do see them as so much better than the other two, and that they have panels that have people who disagree, and I love them for that. Okay, I don't love CNN. Maybe it's a low bar. But I love that they at least have round tables with disagreeing opinions.
They're good people, but they stabbing them in the back. These are good people. I hate when my side attacks Trump voters. They're good people, but they put their faith in a guy who's stabbing them in the back every day. You can't have higher tariffs and lower prices.
Was he not also elected by the working men and women of this country to give them better job opportunities in the middle of this country? I mean, part of the whole animus of the Trump campaign in 2016 was the hollowing out of the American manufacturing sector.
Go tell them.
And that's what he's doing.
Go tell them that adding $12,000 to the cost of their car is going to be really good for them, Scott. I wish you luck with that, buddy.
I'm going to go tell them they're going to get a job, make more money than they've ever made.
Yeah, they're going to tell you you're full of malarkey.
Well,
you're raising costs across the board. If you drive or drink or eat or dress, you're going to be paying more.
Inflation rates have come down in the last couple of months.
But I do think
Depending on what the tariffs are on, then yes, if you work in the USA in an industry where those tariffs are being levied on other countries, yes, as an employee of those, your pay is going to rise a bit. But if you don't work in any of those jobs where there are no taxes on that stuff, then you're going to have retaliatory taxes on a whole bunch of things from the countries that you're tariffing. And for you, you're both not getting the bump in pay, and you have to pay way more on essentials. So I think that's a little misleading.
part of this is who's around Trump and his economic advisors in terms of how they're guiding him on this compared to last time. It does seem different in terms of no one's saying, oh, you should pull back on this or you should do this. They're much more on board with it than they were 8 years ago.
I think that's across the board when it comes to the Trump agenda, that you're not going to have the instances that we saw in the first term where, you know, different cabinet officials are pushing back on some of these ideas. Also, tariffs were at the center, and he made it clear during the campaign of not only his economic agenda, but also his foreign policy agenda as well when it came to these nations. I don't think you're going to convince the president to walk back something like that he has made a central part of his agenda at this point.
And this is what business leaders legislators are struggling with right now. Who can get through to him to make their case about how this is affecting them and consumers by extension? How do they reach him? You know, I'm thinking about the Business Roundtable meeting a few weeks ago, which some people were imagining as like a big come to Jesus, and ended up just being a Trump rally.
We'll see what happens there. Of course, April 2nd, everyone has their eyes on that date. Thank you all for being here.
So I'm going to make a statement here that could be very wrong. Call me out if it is. I'm no expert here on economics or policy and foreign tariff policy, but if you come out and say other countries are tariffing us in ways that we're not tariffing them, so if we put tariffs on them, and I'm not even sure if that's true, but if we put tariffs on them and say, hey, we're going to get a short-term fight with having to pay more for a lot of things in order for other countries to back down on supposed tariffs on us, then we'll be better off when this tariff war is over. I think being more outward with that, maybe that could work, but I'm not really sure of how much countries were tariffing us prior to Trump's tariffs, you know. Again, I do appreciate CNN for having contradicting voices on. That's a big plus for me. Interesting video. Please let me know in the comments what you guys think of the video, of the answers I gave. Was I stupid? Call me out. Anything I said or questions I asked, you guys are great at answering them. And I'll see you guys next time, all right? I know I'm doing a lot of politics and geopolitics videos lately. Some of you seem to enjoy me watching those, and that's great, but I do want to get back to, I love learning about history and, different countries and ways other than geopolitical, political, and economic ways. So then to get more back into that. Love y'all. Appreciate any comments. See you guys next time. Bye.